Hello, and thank you for joining us for this presentation on closed meetings for public library boards. My name is Brendan Fredicangelli. I'm happy to be co-presenting this session with Jesse Roberts. We are both consultants with the Ontario Library Service and regularly work with library boards on training and development. This presentation is for anyone currently serving as a library board member in Ontario. The learning objectives will be to understand the why, when, and how to handle closed meetings during a library board meeting. Please note that we will be using the term closed meeting throughout this discussion, as this is the term used in the Public Libraries Act. However, it is also commonly known as an in-camera meeting or session. Our presentation today is going to be brief and focus on the big picture elements of closed meetings. Think of it like an introductory overview, and we are happy to receive follow-up questions on details or on any questions related to your local circumstances. Throughout this presentation, you'll learn how a closed meeting is a legislative activity, a planned activity, and a structured activity. To get us started, I'll begin with an introduction on the ways closed meetings are addressed in the legislation. The Public Libraries Act first addresses the topic with an acknowledgement that all board meetings, so this includes regular, special, and committee meetings, are open to the public except for very specific circumstances within the parameters described by the Act. And this can be found in section 16.1, subsection 2. A closed meeting is permitted under the Public Libraries Act for discussion related to board property, personal matters about an identifiable individual, land acquisition or disposition, labor relations such as employee negotiations or collective agreement negotiation discussions, or legal matters subject to solicitor-client privilege. These permitted circumstances are the basis for holding a closed meeting as part or as a whole board meeting. On the screen, you'll find the exact wording of the legislation for the circumstances of a closed meeting. Additionally, in the event of a Freedom of Information request is being discussed during a board meeting, a meeting can be closed to consider the request if the board is designated head of institution for the purposes of that act. We will continue to reference back to sections of the Public Library Act to cover the context for some of the upcoming content. Next, Jesse will go over some material related to the planning and action for a closed meeting. Over to you, Jesse.
Perfect. Thanks, Brandon. So with the really thorough broad overview that Brandon just provided for us about the legislative intent for holding closed meeting. In short and in summary, the intent of the Public Libraries Act is to ensure that all of the business conducted and decisions made by the Public Library Board are done so in a transparent and public way. That does not, however, mean that the details of a permitted closed meeting discussion need to be made public within the wording of, say, a motion or within the general public meeting minutes. And we're going to spend the next several slides going over some of the details about what the application of the permitted closed meeting parameters mean in reality and how to actually implement them. And we're going to start with how that looks in relation and within the context of the board meeting agenda. So what we have on the screen here is a very, very rough sample board meeting agenda for the fictional Trillium Public Library, which may be familiar to you if you are familiar with the Trillium Public Library sample policies that are available through the Ontario Library Service website. So I want to first off point out a couple of things that are highlighted here. So you might note the placement of the closed meeting being at the end of this sample agenda under number 7. You can see it highlighted there. By placing the closed meeting portion of the board meeting towards the end of the agenda, this allows for little to no interruption of the flow of the public portion of the meeting. That might look like, if you have guests or observers, if the closed meeting is in the middle of the agenda, it may result in asking guests or observers to leave and then return for the public portion of the meeting after the fact. You also want to note the wording of the motion to move into closed meeting that we have here on the sample agenda. It is written in such a way to identify the permitted reason for going into closed meeting, but it does not provide any information or detail that would identify individuals or confidential details that will be involved in the discussion during the closed meeting. Also note, at the bottom of the screen, we have another highlighted portion of text. This is simply a contextual reminder, not part of the agenda itself, but just a reminder that any motions or voting that would need to happen upon coming out of the closed meeting need to happen in that public portion of the meeting. And I'm going to cover a little bit more on that element in just a couple of minutes. So a few comments now on the conduct and activity within a closed meeting during a public library board meeting. The intent of having a closed meeting is to be able to have private discussion, debate, be able to go over information, ask questions, and have a really thorough conversation about the matter at hand. The Public Libraries Act does not typically allow for the taking of a vote during a closed meeting. There are some specific exceptions that are outlined, and I've got the reference from the Public Libraries Act just quoted here on the screen. And I'm going to go over some more of the details in the next couple of slides pertaining to motions, voting, and minutes. So starting off with a motion that might come out as a result of a discussion that happens in a closed meeting. It's always best to conduct any motion or voting and to take those steps upon leaving the closed meeting and returning to the public portion of the meeting. That's not to say that there's always going to be a need for a motion and a vote coming out of a closed meeting, but it is important to follow the appropriate steps when doing so. The wording of any motion, such as the one that we have on the screen here, should be selected so as not to reveal the details of that closed meeting discussion or to identify the individuals involved. All of the details for the decision and for the vote can be noted in the closed meeting minutes, and the motion can be worded to vote on approving the matter as it was discussed in the closed meeting. And we have that example here on the screen. And last but not least, a few comments about closed meeting minutes. So as with every other piece of documentation and recording for board meeting minutes, the minutes of a closed meeting must be taken and stored in a secure location. These minutes should be kept separate from the public minutes for the rest of the meeting. And the rationale for both keeping the minutes and taking detailed minutes during closed meeting, as well as keeping them stored securely in a separate spot from the public minutes, is largely for reference, historical purposes, and a mutual understanding and collective memory of that conversation. It also might come in handy or be necessary during, say, things like an audit process, perhaps property negotiations or legal proceedings, etc. So I think at this point, Brandon, we are just going to cover off a few resources and close off this conversation.
Hey, thank you very much, Jesse. On this slide here, we have listed a few resources related to this topic of closed meetings and also governance more generally, and library board meetings as well. The slides from this presentation are downloadable via the Governance Hub, which you can find at librarygovernance.ca. You can click on the icon for videos and podcasts to access these slides. So with that, I'd like to thank you for watching today's presentation. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any specific questions about closed meetings or any other governance topics. Thank you and take care.